still in London, and we're actually in the Florence Nightingale Museum with Sister Sabah Khalid, who I've known for a long, long time, and who has had quite an impact, I think, on a lot of the women, Muslim women in the UK. You have a very interesting history and intellectual history as well, and feminism has been an area of great interest to you. And I know that you also know quite well Germaine Greer, who wrote The Whole Woman. I mean, that's the only book that I've read, but I mean, she wrote The Female Eunuch.
She wrote a series of books.
Several books.
Most formative, as far as I was concerned, was one she wrote in published in 1984, called Sex and Destiny.
Right.
In a sense, I think that was the best book she wrote, because it puts women in a context. She portrays them as part of an environment, part of a habitat, if you like, and that the habitat, which she calls the family with a big capital F, has been lost to women, and through that loss they have lost a lot of their nature and a lot of their independence, because what she says, the economy was in the family in that big sense, in the
which is what economia in Greek originally meant, the domestic.
Yeah.
It was the actual household. It came from that word.
Yes, it did.
Yes.
And domestic didn't have the terrible kind of bourgeois consumeristic sense to it that it has today. There's the public world, and then you go inside this dreadful sort of, which she describes as well, the little consumer box which you have with your household gods, and your fridge and your computer and these little kind of things organized around in the house. And she talks about how that has affected the relationship between men and women, and also inevitably children and the whole society.
You became Muslim before I did, but I think what we got early on was a glimpse of really a vestige of what existed in the Muslim world. There's a beautiful thing that Pound says in his book on culture, called Culture. He says, I don't know what force emerged in the 7th century from the Arabian Peninsula that led to 300 mosques in Cordoba and countless books and libraries, but I got a glimpse of it in the way the Moor walked in 1913 in Tangier. And I just thought that was such a stunning description of of human dignity.
Given we're talking presumably now in the Arab world, virtually, in the virtual sense, I'd like to put before the Muslims in that part of the world to beware, because this is already consuming Islam, this virtual world.
Yes.
And Allah transmits the wisdom of the deen through His creation. The haqq, the bil haqq, the samawati wal ard is created bil haqq. And that they must be conscious that the more that they surrender to the electronic project and to the corporate project, they can recite Quran from morning till night. They can have it taped, recorded on all kinds of wonderful newfangled processes, DVDs or anything else, but they will not understand anything, because it is transmitted through the signs. The signs are on the earth and in ourselves, and we have to be able to read them. And I think that the loss of that is actually affecting the Muslims, and they're becoming like inward turning. When they're together, they talk about the past, they talk about how wonderful Islam is, and how there's all these wonderful stories of what it was like and what the people were like. But actually, Quran should not be an object of worship. It's not an end in itself. And it is actually a gift from Allah to understand the situation in which we find ourselves today. We have to understand the nature of the sickness that afflicts the world today.
Yes.
Otherwise, the Quran is like a self-indulgence. The teachings are a self-indulgence. The discussion between each other about how wonderful this woman was or this man was and how wonderful it is a waste of time. It's not our life. Our life is to bring the deen into the world in such a way that it becomes intelligible to people and it becomes a cure.
One of the things the Prophet ﷺ said about the latter days is يُصْبِحُ الْحَلِيمُ حَيْرَانًا, that people of quietude become disquieted.
Yeah.
Do you know that it becomes so perplexing? There's a lot of hayra. I mean, we are living in a very difficult time. When I go to the Arab world, and I've been going there now for almost 30 years, each visit I see diminishment, and it's very troubling for me, and they don't see what they're losing. Do you see, we here in the West, you know, we've lost it, yes. And now you know, it's literally, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this, that they're like, you know, we want all of this, and
poison.
It's the Trojan horse. Yeah. You know, it's beware of Greeks bearing gifts, and I'm part Greek. You know, but it's the Trojan horse, and technology is part of it. That it's going to make your life wonderful. Yeah. It's really difficult. I think, but that's why you have to identify exactly what's happened. You have to look at it almost forensically. You have to look at it. What's going on? One, we're individuated. So what do? Jamaat. Get together, because that's one battle. That's one resistance movement. It's not, shaitan. You don't blow yourself up, which is the opposite way. You disintegrate yourself. You pull together. And you don't just pull together in a formal sense in a Jamaat, in a mosque, and a religious way. You start to integrate socially. It has to go beyond just this Jamaat. They've got to stop building all these mosques, these prestige buildings.
But the mosque was,
and they have to focus. The Arabs have to recognize they must help us women, Muslim women, to rebuild the Jamaat who are going to go in the beautiful mosques. Because you can build a beautiful mosque till you're blue in the face, and you got it full of empty people and drug addicts, people who are dealing drugs in the back row, and people who are going to blow themselves up in the next. They have to put their resources into the recreation of Islamic lifestyle
content. So the form has content.
And that means giving us a chance to be in nature, putting our children in natural environments again, raising them together.
Putting our women as well.
You know, we just have a few more minutes, and I just wanted to bring up Florence Nightingale. And Florence, to me, in terms of Western women, she really represents somebody who just went against all of the conventions of her time. She was such an independent person, and when she went to Egypt, she actually went to she wanted to get away, and there was kind of an Egypt mania in Victorian England. A lot of people, but she was from that first group before it became very popular. She went in the 1840s. But one of the things that really struck me in her diary is her experience of Islam, and she gets to a point where she goes into a mosque. It was Sultan Hassan Mosque. And she said that she was struck with this overwhelming feeling that she'd found the religion that she'd been looking for all of her life, because she felt the pure unity of God was being articulated in the architecture of the mosque. And she said it was something she'd never found in the churches of England. And she lamented, she said, if only there was a place for women in this religion. And she was quite horrified by the conditions of women in Egypt at the time. She was very troubled by the way that they were treated. In the end, she actually said at the end of her diary, she said, my heart kept telling me, turn to Mecca, turn to Mecca, turn to Mecca. There's only one God, there's only one God, there's only one God. Sayyidah Sabah, it's really been an honor to have you today, and thank you for taking your time. And I hope some of these meanings might penetrate the hearts of some of the people that hear them. May Allah increase you in tawfiq and what you're doing. So thank you very much.
And to you as well. Thank you very much for this opportunity
thank you for being here with us.
To move Islam forward, inshallah. So thank you very much, Shaykh Hamza.
When you think of the two words, women and Islam, the religion Islam, what comes to mind?
Probably one word would be very devoted. Another would be community.